This lecture is based on ethical decisions in health education and promotion. So the first question to really answer is, what are ethics? Ethics are typically based in these four terms are used interchangeably, although they are all slightly different. Ethics, what is moral and immoral, what are ethical principles, and what are values? And we're going to talk a little bit about each of these. So these are two different definitions of ethics. Merriam-Webster says that ethics is a theory or system of moral values, and Gold and Greenberg, who are well known in health education, state that it's a branch of philosophy that deals with systematic approaches to dealing with morality. Something that they have in common is the word system or systematic. They both have moral or morality, and Merriam-Webster uses the word values. Some of the key points here is that this is a structured thought process. It's not just whatever. And we're going to look at that structure because the ethics for the Code of Ethics for Health Educators is well structured. So morality relates to when something has a right or wrong, where we can look at something and go, that's right or that's wrong to do. An example would be snow is white. We all agree snow is white. We all agree the sky is blue. That's a definitive answer. But in morality, it would involve things that we value or things that we think are right or wrong. So we think, most people agree, murder is wrong. This is an example of morality where we actually can say that we think something is right or something is wrong. And it can be influenced by cultural norms and standards. A very clear example of that is how people see sexuality. Some people see sexuality as binary. You're either a man or a woman. Some people see it as more fluid, that it is a spectrum of maleness and femaleness. And that's true within our country, and it's also true in other countries. There are countries and other cultures that do not believe in binary. They believe that sexuality is non-binary. And there are, for example, there are American Indian tribes that see someone who has both qualities of male and female as being closer to the gods. And that's seen as a positive thing. So those are just some examples of how cultural norms and standards can influence the way people see things as right or wrong. Next is ethical principles and values. And these are guidelines that you can use to help you decide if something is moral or immoral. That's the ethical principles. Values are when you have an estimate of worth. So you have a choice between X and Y, and you have to decide what's more important. A very easy example is in Les Miserables. The guy has to decide, is he going to steal bread to feed his children, or is he going to follow the law and not steal bread and have his children go hungry? That's an example of a value. That person has to decide, is it more important to follow the law, or is it more important to feed my children? And that's just an example that you can use to think about what values are. Ethical principles and values are typically based in four areas. The first one is no maleficence, which means do no harm. Beneficence means do good. Autonomy is that we like to see people who are free to make their own choices, and justice has to do with things being equitable, that we are fair in the way we treat people, and that we help people reach equitable situations. So the Code of Ethics for Health Educators was originally written in 1990, and it was revised in 2020. The Coalition of National Health Education Organizations are the ones that put the ethics together, and any organization that's related to health education and promotion will have these ethics available. So the Code of Ethics is divided into two main areas. The first one is core ethical expectations, and then the second one is specific to our practice. We're not going to go into a lot of detail, although I am going over everything because there is material that you can review and look at in more detail. So core ethical expectations, these are overall expectations of what our behavior should be like as health educators. We should always display personal behaviors that are ethical. We should be honest, autonomous. We should promote beneficence, respect, and justice. We should avoid derogatory language, violence, bigotry, racism, harassment, um, so that we're fair to everybody. We accept people for whom they are. The next item is respecting and supporting the rights of individuals and communities. We want individuals to make informed decisions about their health as long as it does not pose a risk to someone else. Um, Truthful about their qualifications and your own qualifications and others. So, scope of practice means you're trained to do something. So, if you do something within your scope of practice, it means you're trained and qualified. But if you go outside of what you're trained to do, then you're outside of your scope of practice. And that is a major issue if that ever happens. The fourth one is to respect privacy, confidentiality, and dignity. And so that means we accept diversity and we're supportive of different types of relationships and different types of people. We also respect privacy in regards to if we're involved in anything that might contain personal information that's not shared. The fifth one is that if we see someone breach the code of ethics or we suspect someone has breached the code of ethics, that we report it. We need to be conscious and responsive to all different types of diversity. And this has to do when you're assessing a needs, planning a program, conducting evaluation, anything that a health educator would do. And we should disclose conflicts of interest. And conflicts of interest almost always involve some type of gain or money. And money is a gain. So an example of a conflict of interest is that if I write a book for Health 430 and I require you to buy the book and I make money off of you, that's a conflict of interest. However, if I write a book and require you to purchase it, but I take all the proceedings and I put them into a scholarship fund, I've eliminated the conflict of interest. However, in every situation we're in, we must be transparent about any conflict of interest. So this is the second part of it. This has to do with specific practice in health education. These are the areas of ethical practice, and sometimes they force us to choose one value over another. It's not always cut and dry in our code of ethics. So we're going to look at each one. The first one is responsibility to the public. And these are some examples of being responsible to the public. We advocate for actions or policies that promote health and eliminate or minimize risk, and also that promote health equity. We need to redefine practices that don't do that, develop new approaches, and make sure we share the outcome of our work with other people in the field. And we always need to involve stakeholders and the community in any educational process that we're doing. Responsibility to the profession has to do with being responsible in our behavior and that we behave as a certain way. We promote the certification of health educators. We improve and expand our professional competence, which means you would continue in professional training after you have a degree. Constantly looking at the profession, the practices, and determining how to refine them and make them better and share our work, and always giving recognition to others for their achievements. The third responsibility is to employers, and in this situation, it means that when we're doing program planning, we're using evidence-based practice and we're using informed standards and theories, that we don't just throw out an idea, but whatever we're doing, it's based in evidence and facts. We have to report outcomes to employers, what the expected outcomes might be and what the actual outcomes are. And we need to continue our education and maintain our competence. These are all shortened versions of what it is. Responsibility in the delivery of health education. This means we have to stay informed of the latest scientific info on health education and promotion, on theory, and on practice, and evidence-based practice. We should support professional standards that are grounded in theory and best practice, and we should promote healthy behaviors through informed choice and advocacy and not coercion or intimidation. So, if we want someone to stop smoking, the goal is to promote the healthy behavior in a way that they will choose it, and we advocate for behaviors so that people want to do them. What we don't want to do is force people into healthy behaviors. Disclose potential harms and benefits to individuals involved in the program. We should always collaborate with other organizations and individuals and respect the unique contributions that people bring. And we should never plagiarize. And while AI is not on here, I don't think anybody in the field would expect you to use AI solely to develop something and then claim it as your own. The fifth one, responsibility in research and evaluation. Most of this has to do with research, which none of you are in the process of, almost none of you are in the process. But we have to ensure that it's voluntary and it goes through a review board. Every organization has a review board it has to go through. Informed consent means they understand what they're doing and they consent to it. Voluntary is more gray. If an organization positions itself in the middle of poverty-stricken neighborhoods, and then when they want to test a new drug, they go into the poverty-stricken neighborhood and they offer them money to give them the drug to see what happens, that's not really considered voluntary. Even if the person says, yes, I know there's a risk, and yes, I want to volunteer, the fact that they are living in poverty and the organization is offering them money puts the voluntary aspect into question. Always, it's our job to respect privacy. All information should be treated privately unless it's required by law. Typically, if someone is going to self-harm or kill someone, you have to report it. And depending on the field you're in, I actually think almost all fields that is a professional field, if you are informed of child abuse, that must be reported also. And there are some other laws that require that you report certain behaviors. You take credit for what you do and give credit to others. Your results are accurate and objective and timely, and you promote the dissemination of your results. So that means you're going to share your results with other people so they learn from that. Professional preparation and continuing education. This has to do a lot with colleges and universities and places that provide continuing education. The educational environment should be free of discrimination, coercion, and harassment. The professional preparation and continuing education should show careful planning. There's clear expectations. It's based in scientific fact. It's appropriate for what you're learning. It's inclusive, and it provides prompt feedback. Objective and comprehensive guidance to learners. So at a college or university, are you getting the guidance you need to understand the field? And are there organizations that facilitate meaningful opportunities? So that's an overview. There are more specific information in the folder. But what we're going to do now in class is you're going to be applying the code of ethics to real life scenarios.